So, do it now?
Dude, do what now?
I can start? I can finally start? I feel like it's been so long.
I hit the record button.
Salutation shades, and welcome back to your one-stop shop for all things strange and unusual, talking with shadows. The conversation everyone has, but no one wants to admit to. Here with your long-belated host, John... Here with your long-belated host, Vic Waitley.
It's okay. Names are hard. And the awaited return of Marcus D. And we are back from a hiatus where life and construction happened and kept us out of the studio.
We are in the new studio, but it's not complete, but we can now stand in it.
We look like we're in a really shitty pop shelter for the new Fallout game that they're going to do. Like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to protect us from radiation or turn us into ghouls.
I mean, the floors are done, the ceiling's done, the walls are kind of done. Now, electricity, we don't really have electricity yet, so we're recording off, like, a power strip and a really long extension cord.
No, you don't have... It does look very nice. I will say this. It is coming along very nicely, especially the dangling electrical cords coming out of some of the walls.
The electrician hasn't had a chance to come by yet to finish it. At least we have light.
This looks like some sort of DC villain, super villain origin story. We're about to be electrocuted and turned into electrified paranormal podcast hosts.
But soon, everything will be wrapped up. We're going to have the bar done. We'll be adding some visual elements once everything's looking really nice.
Long-term plan has always been for us to be able to stream and be able to do this live so you guys can see us. But once that happens, remember, no takesies backsies. So I'm just saying. Also, remember, we're married, so
I'm
tough luck.
I'm super handsome. Just trust me. And if it comes to the point where you can see my face, I was in a horrible accident.
Except when people actually see us, they always assume that our voices don't match our bodies. They expect them to be different.
I should be you and you should be me.
I know. I apparently sound like they're really tall, rugged, like one with facial hair. I'm like, I'm glad that I have that deep manly sound in my voice.
But I'm just so glad to be back.
We are. We're super excited to be back. We've been missing being able to record episodes for a good while, so we're super happy to be back in the studio recording for you guys. And we need to give 3 shout-outs to 3 new patrons, which I was shocked that we still racked up patrons, even though that we went, radio dark for a couple weeks. We appreciate that, and we were super shocked.
And I think it's probably just people going through the back episodes.
Yeah. Big shout-out to Antares, Waxper Rabbit, and Michael Henson for signing up to be patrons. We appreciate that so much.
Thank you guys so much for joining Becoming Shades, and welcome.
Absolutely. So we're super excited. We're recording.
Wait. First, let's get into some alcohol. I've abstained from alcohol since the last recording as a punishment. No, that's a lie.
There's no way you can say that with a straight face.
Today, we are drinking Jack Daniel's Tennessee Quality Coke.
But first, when Vic called me, he's like, "Can you see if they got Jack Daniel's Coke Zero?"
They make it.
I'm not walking into a liquor store asking for that. And also they just have it. Otherwise I probably would have got it because we actually just do drink Coke Zero.
Coke Zero's good.
It is good.
Ricky Bruckman from Mount Vernon Paranormal's the one that's got us drinking it.
I jest. Yeah, cheers to you guys. Cheers.
It's good. Though it's very whiskey forward.
Yeah. Woo, okay.
For being 17 or 7%, that's what, 14 proof?
Are you sure that it's that much when you slurring your words?
Oh my God.
It's a 7 square pie cat alcohol content. That's pretty good actually.
Oh yeah, no, I like it. No, I was on Discord earlier today, and I was talking with someone. They're like, "You want to see something crazy?" I'm like, "Yes, please." And then I'm like, "Oh, please don't let it be nudes." As they send me like this advertisement for Jack Daniel's Coke and Jack Daniel's Coke Zero. I'm like, I know what we're drinking today for the podcast.
Yes. And well, and I'm very glad that you're asking people finally now to not send you nudes. The patrons are probably very aware of that. We've apparently the One Candle Society Discord was invaded twice by sex predators.
We have a Discord. It's patrons only, but like somehow twice now we've been invaded by people just posting tons of furry porn.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a business meeting for work, and all of a sudden my phone just starts violently vibrating over and over and over, and I ignore it. And I finally get on to everybody going, "What's that? Stop! Don't post that." So I'm like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh, we were infiltrated by sex predators, but we have kicked them out, and they are no longer welcome."
Actually, I think my response was really good. I'm just like, "Hey man, I'm glad you're really into this, but this is not the place." And then they post more. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. You want me to ban you? Okay, here you go. Here's your ban.
No, the funny thing is like, I felt like this was like good cop, bad cop, because Vic later asks me, he's like, "So should I just ban him for like a little bit?" And I'm like, "No, you ban a sex predator permanently." Like, look at Vic over there being so forgiving.
I did a 1 week ban, and I'm like, that'll give me some time to figure out if it needs to be a permanent ban or not. And I was gonna ask you, like, hey, maybe the person was just having a weird day. They were in a weird mood.
Like it was like they have entered the Discord. Everybody just starts waving, and then immediate, "Oh, that's a whole lot of porn." Okay, that's kind of weird. And then it happened again, so it was weird.
But okay. The topic for today.
Yeah, so we're late in the month, and we wanted to think about what something to talk about, and then we missed for a little bit. We missed some pretty big, something big in the paranormal news. So we really wanted to bring that up for today's episode. We thought it would be cool. We thought that we would talk about the UFO. The UAP.
Oh yeah, the
pinky up UAP. The UAP hearing that happened back on May 17th of this year.
You see, congressmen are too fancy to say UFO. They need a higher brow acronym.
They so bougie. I'm like, my mama called them UFOs, my grandmama called them UFOs, I'm gonna call them UFOs. I don't care what you call them. We all know exactly what you're talking about.
Speaking of that, there's a lot of weird, somewhat strange jargon in this whole hearing. And how many times did you watch the hearing? Because I watched it 4 times.
Yeah, I watched it 2 or 3 times. My boss was like, "Are you working today, Marcus?" I'm like, "Absolutely." It's like, well, I've got the hearing playing on YouTube, in the background. I'm like, the most important work possible, criticizing the U.S. government.
There you go.
But no, it's weird. Well, I mean, there were some things about the hearing that I found similar, because unlike Vic, I'm a huge C-SPAN nerd, and I will watch it literally just for fun sometimes. And so there were some things on there that I was not 100% shocked on with some of the ways that they're responding, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Okay. But what's the name of this new UFO group?
We'll get to the name. So the specific hearing, if you have not seen it, it was done by the House Intelligence Committee. And it was pretty much where they were talking to Ronald Moultrie, who's the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, and Scott W. Bray, who's the Deputy Director for Naval Intelligence. And they were talking about this really cool new task force that they're about to put together, and which makes me super nervous whenever they talk about doing task force, which is particularly called...
It's called AOIMSG. Okay, it is not spelled how you think it would be pronounced, but I think they were pronouncing it AIMSG. Mm-hmm. The spelling is AOIMSG, and it is a really weird acronym. I'm going to break it down for you. Airborne Object Identification and Management Synergization Group.
Who workshops?
Synchronization Group.
Who workshops that name?
It is a weird... Well, I will say this. Very early on in the hearing, it's basically the moment they admit that we're called this incredibly embarrassing acronym. They go, "Oh, but we're going to change the name real soon. Don't worry. We're getting rid." As everyone's just looking like they just bit into a lemon. Everyone's like, "Ugh."
Yeah. So and one of the things that immediately caught me off guard was I was like, but then it wasn't super shocking to me, was like, they call it this long acronym, and they're like, oh, but for short, we call it AIMSG. And I'm like, let me get this straight. The U.S. government is making something to investigate unknown technology, and they nicknamed it AIM, like the Marvel supervillain technology group. I'm like, that had to be intentional. There is absolutely no way.
Actually, one of the main guys did admit they're a very big sci-fi fan. Comic books fall under the genre of sci-fi, and did clarify that they do go to sci-fi conventions, but do not always dress up. His words, not mine.
Robert Bolter, like he looks like a comic book nerd and like a sci-fi fan. Like I can totally see that for him. The guy who was the Undersecretary for Defense and Intelligence and Security, which is way too long of a title of a name. But it was so weird. Like, they spent 20 minutes in the beginning of it literally just talking about why they were there and the importance of this. And they honestly at first thought that I believe that they really thought how cool they were sounding at first. Like, this was going to be this historic thing. But literally just Congressman Schiff, the chair, is like there has been no official, like, documented investigation into UFO activity since Project Blue Book. And which A is inaccurate, which they later challenged later, so he just didn't know. And then B, you saying like this is this prolific thing, like, so you're telling me since for the last 50 years that the U.S. government has had no real official way of investigating crap they don't know what it is in the sky? Like you just said that with a straight face.
Also, like, I didn't really feel like this is a super well put together outfit. It's like you're expecting to walk in and Scully and Mulder, X-Files, that sort of stuff. And what you get is the beginning of Ghostbusters, where they're still trying to put together, like, the firehouse. Like, at one point he's like, they show a video, and one of the congressmen's like, oh, that went really fast. Could you go back? And it took him like 15 minutes to go back on the video to that one point.
I'm like, there's no way that this is one of the best. There's no way that this is even some of the best stuff that they could have been showing also, too. Like, they literally pulled some of let me rephrase it. The first one was pretty crappy. They literally, the second video that they show, which was the triangle, I think it was under like night vision or something that they showed, was way cooler.
SLR?
Yeah. It was an SLR camera, and it was way cooler of a video to watch compared to the first one, which I really couldn't exactly tell what they were really talking about.
But you ready to start getting into some of the actual weirdness?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I got one I want to start out with.
Sure.
One of the senators that was in the audience raised a question that was shot down really, really, really fast. So basically, I'm going to translate a little bit because they're using a lot of jargon. But he basically says, well, what about UFOs that can go underwater? What about basically USOs? And they shut it down immediately, saying, no, that doesn't get talked about until the closed door classified one. And it was like really fast shut down.
Like, sir, we can't bring that up, and then we're gonna talk about that during closed door stuff.
Yeah, no, like, and it was like he was waiting for that question. It was just hammer down, boom, moving on, which makes me think that was an interesting response there.
Yeah. It's like when you watch some of these hearings, you have to listen to sometimes what people are not saying. Because especially when you're going to have something like a public intelligence thing, because obviously at the same time they're not going to be talking about stuff that's got to be closed. Like during this nobody goes into this thinking that they're going to go, "Yep, aliens are real. Here they come down out through the doors, guys. We've now been entered into the Galactic Federation of Planets."
Which would be kind of cool. Yeah, I'd be okay with this.
Like, it's just not going to happen. So like you have to listen to some of the stuff that they say or some of the things that they omit. Like there was one particular thing which I thought was really interesting because when they were talking about aircraft that had no like visual type of propulsion, and one of the congressmen asked them, "Is there anything that our allies or our enemies have that can do that?" And they just flat out said, "No, there's nothing that they have that can do that," which immediately made me think that means maybe do we have something that does that?
And also he reworded the question a little bit when he responded. He actually responded along the lines of, because the question was, do our allies or enemies have things that do not have visual propulsion? His response was, we know what our allies and enemies' vehicles are propelled by, which was an interesting form of evasion. And considering this is a congressional hearing, you do have to choose your words very carefully. And I don't think that was a hand wave rewording. I think that they are saying, yes, many of us do have non-visible propulsions, and we know about it. Because, like, he can't really lie. He can't perjure himself in front of Congress.
But he can answer the question the way that he wants to.
Yep. And that would be a way of responding in such a way that would keep him from perjury.
Like, one of the things that they say during the hearing, which I think was really interesting, that it was which I thought was odd that they just flat out boldly said, which is what they said that when they were talking about recovered aircraft.
Yeah.
Because they flat out just said, no, we have not recovered any downed aircraft that is not of terrestrial origin. Like, they flat said that statement.
But also, they haven't actually been around very long.
Well, truthfully, or depending upon what they mean by that, we have not done that. Like, is it we as in like the United States government, or probably we as in like we their particular task force?
I would assume he's answering on behalf of the task force, given like the context of the situation.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of times in which it's just sort of been like highly suspicious of like some of the stuff that's been recovered. But then again, we've been talking for a while that we don't necessarily think that all spacecraft is necessarily extraterrestrial in origin. And if you were talking about, say, like an advanced civilization that's on Earth, that's still technically terrestrial. And he's technically not lying when he says that, if they say that.
And you guys have probably heard me to death at this point talking about how I don't think the Greys are aliens. Their motives don't make any sense. They make way more sense if they're a breakaway civilization, an alternate reality, dimensional but still human, something along those lines makes a lot more sense for their motives.
Or particularly, or they could also be saying they're not lying if we, as in the United States government, is not necessarily the one doing the recovery.
That is fair.
Like if there's another particular type, because again, there's this whole idea that maybe there's this, there's an extraterrestrial force that's involved in recovering some of this. Maybe we're involved in some. If they're the ones that are technically recovering something, then technically, no, we are not the ones recovering it, but they may be the ones that are starting to recover it.
I hated how little discussion there was of aliens. I wanted more of them talking about aliens and UFO extraterrestrial stuff.
When you're talking about UAP, I knew that some of the stuff that they were really going to be talking about was going to be stuff like either like hypersonic technology, like hypersonic missile technology has been like a big concern on the rise, or two, drone technology
and mylar balloons. They brought it up.
Yeah, I know. And drone technology. So, I mean, and I think that's another thing I think drone technology has become a new factor when it comes to UFO phenomenon. And I think this is something that I don't know. Like, I haven't really seen a whole lot of, like, I don't know, like, I've seen it, like, when people have been doing some stuff, like, on UFO, research, but it's not, like, out in the mainstream culture when people are talking about UFOs, or could it be something else? It seems like the whole concept of drones and stuff like that has been really just kept to, I don't know, professionals in the field investigating the phenomenon of unidentified aerial phenomena.
Ooh, you sound so fancy.
I know, bougie, keeping up my panky during the whole time. But it's hard. But it was so hard for me, though, during that episode to watch it in the very beginning, because one of the things that they were saying was they kept harping on this throughout the entire hearing. This was something that they kept harping on, was about reporting UFO stuff.
Oh yeah, and trying to avoid like the stigma and the importance of the reporting process.
But the problem was they really, to me, they came across like the Ministry of Magic from Voldemort whenever they take over, whenever they were like, we want to remove the stigma of reporting unidentified stuff. Please come to your caring government to please report any unusual things that you see in the sky. We are creating an environment of understanding when you report this stuff. And I'm like, it sounded so skeezy when they were saying that. I'm like, removing that. I'm like, we're going to make this part now of pilots whenever they come out there and they're debriefing to say, did you see anything unusual?
But at the same time, I am kind of glad that it's going to take away, or assuming it does succeed, take away some of the stigma, because a lot of pilots like end up saying, yes, I've seen a lot of stuff, but I can't go on record because no one will ever trust me to fly a plane again. And if we can get that out of the way, I feel like we're going to get a lot more reports from the commercial sector.
Yeah, I think because they were throughout the hearing, they were more harping on, I felt, reports of like Navy and Air, like pilots specifically reporting this. And I think there was a part in which they were saying, hey, do you have anything from like people reporting this from the public sector?
Nope.
Well, they said they had partnerships, but they didn't. Yeah. It wasn't like they said like the FAA. So like a commercial pilot or somebody, or something gets like flagged for that. But no, it didn't sound like they made a hotline tip like 1-800 you snitch or 1-800 you squeal.
But what if someone false reports? What sort of horrible punishment will they receive?
Oh my God. There was a whole segment of that guy. It was Congressman LaHood from Peoria, Illinois. Like he went psychotic. He really did.
Yeah, this is during kind of the Q&A part of it, but he just gets like almost like sweaty looking, and he's super concerned on how do you punish people who falsely report a UFO.
Yeah.
So like, and what does that even mean? Like what? Let's say like I see something weird up in the sky and I'm like, oh, what if this is bad? And I call it ends up being a Mylar balloon. What sort of punishment does he want brought down on my head? Because the way he sounds, he wants a sword of Damocles literally hovering above me, just waiting to slip me in twain. That was the sense I got from this guy.
It was so much of him just concerned. And the whole time he's saying that, I'm listening too. I'm like, I don't know, like, is there some sort of penalty? Like, as a paranormal podcaster, that's what I'm listening to. Like, is there some sort of concern? And like, it was Moultrie. He was just like, yeah, no. like he all but just flat out said like, well, there's like the First Amendment, like there's this, and it was really weird that I'm sitting and listening to that. I'm like, and I was shocked that he didn't say this back. I'm like, I want to make sure I get this correct. So you're telling me like the legislative branch of the government who writes the laws is asking the executive branch who enforces the law, is there a law? Like, I wanted to make sure that was what he was trying to do.
The look on his face is what I would imagine would happen if you walked into McDonald's, slammed your hand on the counter and went, "Give me a pizza." It's sir, that's not my job.
I want a pizza. I want a pizza right now with pepperoni and cheese and half covered in gummy bears. You will do this right now, or else there will be consequences.
But it was just like a very strange line of question. That was a lot of them, though. Some of them were like very brass tacks, cut and dry. Like, are we going to be more focused on discovering enemy technology? How is that going to work? Things like that. But the ones that weren't like really milquetoast questions were all like really weird out there questions.
Like, oh my God, my absolute favorite congressman that asked a question was Gallagher. Was Congressman Gallagher, because he starts talking about like the Maelstrom UFO incident.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the Maelstrom UFO incident occurred on March 16th, 1967. By the way, during Project Blue Book, mind you, they still apparently were asking this question, so they should know the answer. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, so he asks about this, and this is a particular incident in which allegedly there was this red UFO site, UFO that was spotted above one of our nuclear missile sites. And, like, allegedly 10 of our ICBMs goes offline, like during this particular incident. And Gallagher was like, do you know anything about this? And both these guys were like, huh? What? Who? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Huh?
I really thought that was odd, because if you're
he was hung up on that.
Well, truthfully, this is one of the ones where you'd want to get hung up on it. And I just thought it was weird that they could not give any form of response. My only assumption is either A, they are incompetent, or B, they're putting on a snow job. They're just acting like they're not aware of it because they don't want further questions until they're behind closed doors. Because, like, all this was occurring, this was the public portion of it, and then 30 minutes after this part of the meeting was the closed door portion of it. And there were several times where, like, yeah, that's an inappropriate question. We're going to talk about it in this section.
I don't know if they're dumb. I think that...
Oh, I don't think it is either. No. I think they're obfuscating.
Yeah, I think they're like... They kept saying stuff like, we We are not sure. And because one of the things that I was checking too, I'm like, why is Gallagher so hung up on this? And I'm like, is he from that? Because the Maelstrom incident occurs in Montana, but he's from Wisconsin, so he's not even from that state. So it's even kind of weirder that he, like, I guess kind of from the area, but like that was just a really weird left out of the blue sort of question to be asking. I mean, to be asking these guys.
But this isn't the first time we've heard about UFOs shutting down missiles before.
No, it's not. I mean,
it could have been just relating a particularly important one, and perhaps they've had one happen in their state that we just don't know about.
Well, to be fair, so we're talking about nuclear deterrence, and this is a huge thing when it comes to foreign policy. So I mean, imagine having technology, drone technology, or probably, well, I guess in '67 probably wouldn't be drone technology, but it would probably be pilots. But like, imagine having, well, now it would be drone technology probably. Like, imagine having the ability to shut down nuclear missiles from by using some sort of aircraft like that, and how much that could take now nuclear deterrence off of the board for foreign policy. Like, that would be a game-changing thing.
If only we could just do that to all of them.
Well,
I just don't want to get
nuked. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get nuked either, but like, how scary of a concept that is. And again,
that's incredible leverage.
And again, this is a huge thing, and I keep talking about it. Like nuclear politics swirls back into UFO and the paranormal like a lot more than what people give it credit for.
I mean, the whole Cold War was basically posturing and a leverage game over who has nukes, where those nukes positioned, and who could leverage that power most effectively.
Well, yeah, and we saw a huge rise of like contactee alien religion cult-esque type contactee movements post 1945. Like post 1945, after we have atomic.
And what are a lot of them warning about?
Nuclear, us destroying each other with nuclear weapons, like nuclear world destruction. I mean, and I get it. I mean, I think that would be something that would be concerned about. I mean,
so how much do you think this is actual contactee sort of getting information from aliens, and how much of it do you think is Cold War anxiety?
Like from this hearing?
No, like that bloom that occurred that you brought up.
About from that. Do I think it's Cold War anxiety, or what was the first one? Or legit?
Like just basically legit contact.
Oh. I think that okay. I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes from it. I'm not gonna completely rule it out, but I do think that a lot of stress and trauma has, like, especially during that time period for a lot of people, what is going to be something that will creep into the culture. So I do think that is something that probably has a lot to do with it. Now, granted, also could be one of those tipping points. I mean, it's like stuff like when you watch Star Trek, like, and they talk about like when are you going to really interact with humanity. It was always like when warp drive was a thing, right? Yeah. Like when they did that, and I'm like, I'm wondering if maybe like is nuclear energy the actual like contactee thing that's the actual like litmus test for aliens contacting another species.
I mean, that shows that we have the ability to interact with some of the most fundamental forces of nature and are actually manipulating two of the actual forces of nature, which would be strong and weak nuclear force.
Well, or also possibly like a threat to one of the few resources that exists on this planet, biological matter.
Yeah. And the only real unique things on Earth that you couldn't just get way more easily from asteroids is protein and chlorophyll. Oh, and like TV dinners. Forgot the third one. Mango cherry vape juice is the fourth.
So, like for you, do you think that there was this underlying thing about UFOs during the whole thing, or do you think that it was literally just about like just enemy aircraft?
I think that you can kind of tell when there were certain beat changes in the conversation. During much of it, they were asking questions about basically discerning, have our enemies created a technology that we don't understand? And every so often you could pick up a beat change where no one was really calling it extraterrestrial, or with rare exception, they weren't calling it extraterrestrial. But you could tell that that's where the conversation was heading. But most people were kind of a little leery to go up and touch that line, particularly since they knew it was like a whole public thing. I think the most telling part of it was the whole thing where they asked about the underwater stuff. We know that there's been like this build up in the conversation of USOs. I imagine they have a new acronym nowadays, but that's the one I'm used to. And we also know that we used to have a lot of major underwater and very expensive underwater research stations that were supposedly closed for some pretty sketchy reasoning. So it really makes me think there's something going on underwater, and perhaps a big part of this hearing is to get us looking up instead of down.
Yeah, like the timing was really weird about this particular hearing. Like it was all done like a year after the last UFO hearings that they had, which was I think the previous June. I think was whenever like those couple of videos that they put out for like UFOs and stuff that they did, that they're doing it like right particularly like now. And it was just very weird to me about why they're bringing this out, and why they're needing to make it be a thing publicly announced. Because I mean, millions of people watch this hearing, like it publicly known that we are now making this particular task force. Because the weird thing was I didn't even know about one of these like they were talking about Project Blue Book, which by the way was totally, which I don't know if you guys caught that. Like we actually commented on one of the things when I was doing it because I was totally moved by that. Because both of these guys said that they did not know of any investigations before Project Blue Book. Like, that was directly asked.
I want to go into that conversation because it was a really weird conversation. And I had to listen to it a few times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding it. Because the person that's asking the question to them is, are you aware of any groups predating Project Blue Book? And I'm like, yeah, there were tons of them that predated Project Blue Book. But what he says is, I don't know of any that have occurred between Blue Book and now, which would not be predate. And then the person who asked the question, which is like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But that also clearly didn't answer the question he was asking, unless I had misheard the question repeatedly. Maybe I just misunderstood what was being asked.
He's talking about Blue Book. Like, even if you know like Project Blue Book, like when you are in like when you're designing like a project, you generally are understanding of what something happened in the past. So you're looking at Project Blue Book, like right before Project Blue Book was Project Grunge, okay, which Project Blue Book replaced in I think it was 52. I think was replaced in 1952, specifically replaced. And not only, mind you, by that, Project Sign, which is before that, which both have Wikipedia pages. Like, and you're going to tell me the undersecretaries of these two branches of the military have no idea of what happened? I'm like, BS.
Yeah, and
I'm not falling for it.
I almost feel like what happened was this. The senator, or was it, it was a congressman. The congressman asked, are you aware of any groups that predate the Blue Book? The response he gives is as if the guy had asked, do you know of any that post-date Project Blue Book? And that's the response he gives back. And then the congressman acts like that makes sense with his question. I almost feel like he got a text at that point being like, nix that question.
Yeah, like don't, because I mean, they bring up ATIP, which is the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which I'll admit I didn't even know about. Which, by the way, was like the program that occurs after Project Blue Book in 2007 to 2012. Which, by the way, do you know who was started by?
No clue.
Harry Reid, funded or strongly encouraged by Bungalow. Do you Skinwalker Ranch much, bro?
Yeah,
I know, it's so weird.
What?
Yeah. That was like I heard that term, and so like I'm googling ATIP, and it was it was an unclassified but unpublicized investigatory effort funded by the United States government to study UFOs, and the program began by Harry Reid, and was strongly encouraged by Bungalow.
I'm opening up my second one of these Jack Daniel Cokes, but I'm definitely feeling the first one. So if any of you guys are trying these out there, maybe don't take them at my pace.
No. I'm washing this down with a regular Coke Zero to numb this. But I
kind of feel like I'm gonna be sloppy by the end of this.
Yeah, but I thought that was a really weird connection about Project ATIP. That it was talking about Harry Reid out there in, I think he's from Nevada, but it was strongly encouraged by Robert Bungalow, who owns Skinwalker Ranch.
That's a really weird. I mean,
Isn't that a weird connection?
we knew that he had connections to aerospace because we had covered that in our Skinwalker Ranch episode.
Yep.
But that's just such a strange connection. Okay, it makes me wonder, is this part of a snow job to give us distracted looking down the wrong rabbit hole? Or is there just something really weird going on in this guy's orbit? And I'm starting to lean more towards there's something weird going on in this guy's orbit. And it makes me think there could be more to the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing. There were just so many strange things that occurred on Skinwalker Ranch. Maybe there's a connection, maybe there's not. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws.
Yeah. I wanted to do a particular video. I love to do a video on Project ATIP. I think that would be an interesting to look at. But it was like, but then nothing happens for like the next 10 years. And it was interesting that he kept saying, and this is another lawyer dodge that he was doing, like political dodge that he was doing, because he kept saying, I'm unaware of any, Mueller kept saying this, the guy from the Defense Department, he kept saying, I'm unaware of any official investigations into any of these. He kept using that phrase pretty frequently, whenever they were specifically talking about other agencies that were particularly looking for some of these. And I'm like, oh man, there have to be some task force or something that's like buried way deep down that these guys are just not bringing up. Like,
certainly.
Like, because they can't sit there with a straight face and not tell me that there's not a task force designed to investigate unexplained aerial phenomenon, even if you're looking at it from the perspective of saying like just enemy aircraft or something like that. And there's probably something for aliens too. But
okay, I've got a question for you. Do you think these guys are going to be another Project Blue Book or another Project Sign?
They're not going to tell us if aliens are real.
I mean, but do you think they're going to just be the update, giving up the updated version of swamp gas, something that sells better to this generation? Or do you think it's going to be like Project Sign, where it's more of a legitimate endeavor?
I think what it is I think that it's just another, they're just continuing what they've always done. I think that, when you're dealing with a world power government, they're just going to investigate things like that. Like, you just don't have unexplained, like, you can't have unexplained aerial phenomenon, like, on your soil. They just can't have that. They're two powerful guys that just have to be sitting in the room going, yeah, we need to know what this is. What I think this hearing actually was I think this was a public statement saying, hey, we know things are happening, and I think this was probably to foreign governments saying, we're watching you. I think that's what the hearing was for, was to say that we are doing this task force to let you know that, yeah, there's been a couple of these blips, but now we're watching particularly. And I think that's the message that they were trying to send.
So you think it was like yeah, China, we're putting you on watch.
Yeah, I do. I think that was what they were doing. I think they were putting it on blast, and I think that was a statement that they got to make, because they can't directly say statements like that. They got to do, they got to do the pomp and circumstance for it. And I think that's what a lot of this was. I think that was some bolstering, which is something that can create bipartisanship support.
That's an interesting take, but I don't think that these are Chinese.
I mean, I'm not saying it's only China
or Russian or Australia or Venezuela.
Yeah.
I don't think many of these objects, when they're talking about things that can pull off these 90-degree turns, move without like a known propulsion source, I don't think we're talking about another nation. Or if they are, I really hope they're allies, because that's some dangerous levels of speed. No. I think that you're right. That I think that they're referencing those particular things, but I think what they're doing is, I think that's more. I think some of that's smoke and mirrors, because it's nothing new. This is none of that is there was no real like eye-opening other like videos or things that like they showed the Tic Tac video, the triangle, like none of that stuff is really. Oh, they didn't actually show the Tic Tac. They brought it up.
Yeah, they referenced it, but none of that was new. So, but I think that what I do think could be new, and this is my guess, is I'm going to say that I think that it's more of them doing the dance and stuff to foreign governments, because I think that if they are looking at alien, like extraterrestrial stuff, this is just stuff that already exists, and they're just not going to talk about it. I just think they would just flat out ignore it. Like, they would just ignore telling the public this.
I think when it comes to us as citizens, I think they're going to present themselves as if they're a reincarnation of Project Sign. I actually got a very big Sign feel from their presentation and the way they were talking, things like that of, hey, we're we're here sincerely and we're going to try to get to the bottom of this, and we're just people possessed with a spirit of inquiry, and we're going to try to sort this all out. Like, I feel like that's how they had presented themselves. I'm worried that at best, we're going to get a Project Blue Book or a Project Grudge, but probably more Blue Booky. Like, I feel like this is how they want us to see them, and what we're actually going to get is probably going to be more of the same.
Yeah, when the government starts bringing on the warm and fuzzies and how where they're being all wholesome, I'm like, all right, where's the guy with the black bag? Where's he at? I'm looking for the van.
I feel like they're trying to come off a little nerdy. I really feel like there is either the people that were up there were legitimately just nerdy members of the defense agency, or they were trying to put on a show to appear a little nerdy.
Oh man, because I think because it really makes me look, because these, like, the congressmen that they had, I think they had like between 8 to 10. I can't remember specifically like how many congressmen were like legit up there on the House Intelligence Committee, but I'm like, for a while they've talked about like the Majestic 12 as being like a thing that supposedly are like these 12 officials that like are the ones actually investigating.
If these congressmen are the Majestic 12, I'm way less scared of the Majestic 12.
Yeah. I'm kind of concerned about the guy from maybe La Hood. Like, like I've tried to like lock up paranormal podcasters spreading disinformation.
Oh yeah, no, I'm worried like we're going to talk about a UFO sighting, and he's going to show up here breaking in the door with handcuffs to take us in himself.
This is like, AOIMSG's here, quick, cheese it! Like, we gotta get out of here.
Wait, where's he from?
Well, he's from Peoria, Illinois. Like,
that's not that far.
No, I know he's not that far. That's like 2.5 hours. Like, if he's a listener, he can get here like in a day. Hey, like in his Honda Civic driving out here, we wouldn't know.
Making political enemies here.
I'm sorry when you say stuff like that of like there needs to be consequences for people falsely reporting unidentified aerial phenomena. What are these consequences? I'm like, all right, okay, someone give Grandpa his pills.
Here's my question for you. Do you think this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing from the perspective of the average citizen?
From the average citizen, for the perspective of the average citizen, I think the average person is just going to look at this and go, oh, that's really cool, they're talking about it. Now, our cool listeners are probably going to be looking going, oh, this is the same old. I didn't really see a whole lot here, but
I really hope that they are a group somewhat committed to transparency, because there was some talks during this about there being a degree of transparency. Basically, they expressed that if we don't have to give away any national secrets in the process, yes, we're going to tell you all the things we have. But when it comes to UFO, what's not going to count as a national secret?
I was waiting for you to get that, and I'm like, did Vic just drink the government Kool-Aid?
No,
they're going to be so open and transparent. I'm like, okay, and then you went on the same thought.
I was building my way to that, but like it was very open and fluffy about that. Truthfully, I think in effect we're going to end up with right back at Blue Book. I think that's right. They're not going to tell us it's swamp gas. They're going to say like it's quantum something. They're going to update their playbook, but I think mainly, I hope it doesn't, but I think it's going to exist as a way to better obfuscate UFO sightings.
I think that my final thought, and I think what this is going to be a new footnote in UFO history. I do think that is an accurate thing. I think that's what we're looking at for this. I think AOIMSG is going to be like another tick in the history of UFO technology, which I think is important for people to know. I do think that is true. That being said, what I think at the end of the day, I see this as generally saber rattling from congressmen to foreign governments. Like, that's kind of my vibe that I'm getting off of it. That being said, I am excited to see, though, more particular UFO terms being brought up in the public sector, like about this. That means people see like the triangles, the Milestone incident, Tic Tac, UFOs. Like, I think that is something that I'm excited to see, because I think that once people hear some of these terms or see some of these things, I think it's going to educate the average person and make them more like UFO competent when it comes to this.
Dan, there's one more question I wanted to ask, kind of in association with these, but let's save it for the patron content.
Sure. We hope that you guys enjoy that. Put your guys' thoughts down below. Do you guys think this is a new age of government transparency? Do you guys think that it's just saber rattling? Do you think that it's new mark in UFO history? Let us know what you guys think about the congressional hearing.
Also, let us know how we sound in the new studio.
Let us know how we sound. Do we sound good, bad? Do we need to do anything differently? We can't wait to be doing some more content for you guys. But until next time, guys, keep believing.
Because we'll keep listening.
All right, guys, we're going to slide into the Pillow Talk segment of this podcast. If you want to check out the rest of this awesome podcast, all you got to do is go over to our Patreon and sign up. For as little as $1 a month, you get the rest of this awesome podcast, as well as access to bonus videos that we put up exclusively for our patrons. From the last month, guys, what we're going to do in July is we're going to do underwater phenomenon. So that's what we're going to do for the month of July. So we'll be looking around July 1st for us to put up our poll for August for what we're going to do as far as for the theme for that month. So, all right, we're going to sign in the pillow. You said that you had another question for me as far as...
I wanted to ask you, do you think that there were task forces between the point of the closing of Blue Book and the beginning of this new project?
Well, I mean, they had the ATIP, but in between Blue Book and ATIP, do I think that there was one? Probably so. Because, I mean, they kept saying the phrase official or ones that they could disclose. So there has to be something in between that was being done, probably classified to be used. And if I had to make a guess, I think probably the reason why it was classified